Hi, and welcome to Just Trying Dad. Chiedo Dogu here, and man, this is an episode. It's one I've started and I've rage quit a lot of times, but this is a therapy episode. I've always felt like I didn't know enough, or I haven't been through it enough to give my opinion on it, but one thing therapy has let me know is it doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing in the world has to be perfect. It just has to be yours and authentically yours and come from a good place. So here we go. Let's talk therapy. No pun intended. Therapy, or to give it its full government name, psychotherapy. That's a bit heavy, yeah? Psychotherapy is... When you hear that, you run for the hills. But it's often called just talk therapy, or you drop the everything else and just call it therapy. But it's a treatment technique that aims to help a person identify and change troubling emotions, thoughts, and behavior. Seems simple, right? But there's work involved. And whatever you choose to call it, the goal is simple. Like, it just wants to help you live a better life, live more freely in the world, and just navigate it at your own pace, at your own space, and just create your own happiness. I think that's big. I think for many of us, we go through a lot of things that make us who we are. A lot of challenges, a lot of struggles, internal and external, seen and unseen. It's never easy to just be our authentic selves. We're either pushing up against stereotypes, we're either pushing up against cultural norms and ways that we should all be based on an ethnicity, based on a nationality, based on color of our skin, based on a job title, based on profession. But one thing I've been able to learn from therapy is that you run your race. Nobody else knows how it is to be within your skin than you. I wouldn't say I'm a new convert to it, because I tried a couple times 10 years ago, and it really just only stuck during the pandemic and with all that was going on and all the challenges. But it's been something that has kind of given me a new lease on life, clarity in who I want to be versus what the expectations are for me to be. And I can't sing its praises enough. I know it doesn't always work for people, and you hear that it's not always going to work for me, but I think with everything it takes patience. Being willing to practice, it takes willing to give yourself grace and not judge yourself too harshly. And just stick with it. It is such an enlightening process because it tends to rope in everything that is all about your optimal mental health and optimal mental well-being. So all the things I like to talk about: exercise, mindfulness, runfulness, relationships with friends, relationship with family. It tends to bring all those things together and just make sure that you are living your most optimal life. Setting boundaries, of course. Dealing with situations as you intend to deal with them, but doing them in your way. And one of the most futile things you can do is be like, why didn't I give this a try long ago? I would be such a different person. I would be so zen. I would be so successful. I would be so this, and the third. But you can't always think like that. I think you are where you are for a reason. I think the journey that you go through is distinctly and inherently yours to go through. Yes, it might be filled with suffering. Yes, it might be filled with pain. Yes, it might be filled with loss, grief, anger, you name it. But you are the strong person that you are because of what you have gone through. So don't discount that struggle. Don't discount your background. Don't discount your trauma. Leverage it to become who you want to be. And that's kind of the gems I get every day when I talk about, I should have been this, I should have known better, I should have done better, I should be better. And you can only hope to continue to be aware, enlightened, and just do better as you know now what you didn't know back then. Coming from my background and being Nigerian and not necessarily wanting to talk about my feelings, I found it very daunting and a bit of a rude awakening, because there were times when I would get overly emotional in the session about certain things, certain bits of practice or work we're about to do. And it didn't necessarily always need to be that way. I think for me it was just, I felt like I was already my complete self in a way. Clearly not, but felt like I had everything put together. I felt like I had everything packaged in such a neatly tight box. And it was more, from what I can tell, it was more about sweeping things under the rug versus actually working through them. And a lot of us will probably be familiar with it, where it's like if one string gets pulled, it's like the whole domino falls. And so I just didn't want that pulled. I didn't want to alter the personality and change the person I've built myself up to be: strong, resilient, able to take on anything. And here I was in therapy, just like fighting against practice and the exercises, because I didn't want to. Just don't open that box. I've closed the box for a reason. You think it's something significantly traumatic, but it's like, let's talk about this childhood. I'm just like, no, don't talk about childhood. I've locked that away. I don't want to talk about childhood. Let's talk about your time in this and that. Let's talk about certain traumas. Let's talk about grief and loss. And I'm just like, I've dealt with this. I'm okay with this. But the thing about it is, these situations are things that you live with, for better or for worse, for the rest of your life, and you're never done with it. I know I talked about this with the grief episode that launched the podcast, and it is something you never get over. You learn to live better with it. Same thing with any kind of trauma in your life. You learn to live better with it and understand and move forward. But to say that you are totally done with it and the lessons that it has for you and the person that it is building you up to be, that's not the case. I think you're ever learning from the experience. I was watching a show, and I think it was the new Chiwetel Ejiofor show on Showmax about the man who fell from Earth, and he said that grief is a predator, and it comes for you at any time, and there's no respecter of social status or class or anything. It just comes for you. It is the one predator that we have as you live your life as a human and a person. And that, I think that goes the same for certain situations that tend to bring us down. You're going to go through stuff in your life. Like if you think you can build yourself up to not have any problems or not have any loss or not have any issues, then quite frankly, you're living in a fairy land. But I think what it is with techniques like therapy, with mindfulness, exercise, and coping and soothing mechanisms, you learn to deal with them better. I mentioned starting the process and going through therapy and the walls that had to break down. And it came down to a point where I kept on misunderstanding the process, because movies, TV shows, the word I'm looking for is idealizing the process or dramatizing the process, make it seem almost like reaching into your brain and shrinking, head shrinking. And that's not the case. I think every single step within therapy is a step that you take it. And it is something that you read through. If you don't open up and engage, then what you get is surface level. So it is always one of those things that helps to open up. It helps to open up. It helps to talk. It helps to be an open book. It helps to be honest with yourself and honest with your therapist about the things that you think affect you. And they are professionals. They know how to pull the strings and write their little notes and get you talking, and things that you didn't know that your subconscious will bring to the forefront are the things that will get talked through. I kept on misunderstanding the process and misunderstanding what it was about. And at a point, my therapist had to send me amongst all the other homework that you have to do after, had to send me document kind of what therapy is and what therapy is not. And so they're not trying to alter your state of mind. They're not trying to change who you are. They're not trying to make you a different person or just change your personality or that mode that you think you are and the personality you love so much. They're just trying to help you live or attain your most optimal mental health. And if that is through breaking cycles, if that is through breaking behavior and breaking just challenges and things that you haven't quite been able to surmount, it's a process that you lead yourself through, but you have a guide in your therapist. And once I read that, I was like, oh, cool, that makes sense. We can do this. This came out specifically when we were dealing with trauma and certain things that have happened, and I was trying to, whether or not you go through the recounting of the trauma and pushing up against that. And that was so interesting because it's like, as strong as I think I am and as healed as I think I am, right? It only took a little bit of trauma, and I call it a little bit of trauma because I try to trivialize it, but it's like one thing can unravel everything, where emotionally you're put back in that place and you're living through it and going through it. One of the other things that's very interesting that I learned from therapy is that even two people that go through the same situation, the same trauma, can experience it very differently. So there is healing in knowing how your counterpart, your family member, or somebody else, or your friends experience the similar trauma that you experienced, that were in the moment. Because from time to time, our mind tends to frame us in different lenses, either as the victim or either as the perpetrator. Whatever it is, it's just good to share and complete the story by looking at the trauma from somebody else's eyes who was there. And that is a next level of selflessness, and the next level of enlightenment that is I didn't know I needed. Just being able to do that and to be able to complete the story and put the jigsaw puzzle together gave me peace and helped to, therapy has been essential. And I know I'm just rambling off and going through, but these are just like real cool experiences in the what is therapy type situation. So it can go anywhere you want it to go, depending on what your makeup is and what you are going through. It could be anything. It could be loss, it could be grief, it could be just living your optimal life. It could be you want to advance at work. It could be you just want to be a better person, let go of the insecurities, let go of the fears, let go of whatever it is that you feel like is holding you back. Because no matter who we are, no matter what you've achieved, we're all being held back by something. And so at the end of the day, it is one of those situations where come as you are, come with what you have, and there is something in there for you. So one of the things you get from session is you get a practice of how to identify emotions. And so you get a feeling wheel and emotions from positive, negative, neutral, and all that kind of stuff. And it is really interesting to see where it's like the feeling wheel is the concept is such that the opposite of happy is sad. I know that makes sense, but it's like things like the opposite of surprised is intrigued, the opposite of loss is joyful, the opposite of ashamed is proud, the opposite of anger is peaceful, the opposite of disgusted is loving, and the opposite of afraid is trustful. And that's kind of like the surface layer to it, but there's a whole bunch of other things that you can distill from it. There's a whole bunch of other emotions from elated, thrilled, and that's all variations of joyful. But it's good to be able to see that emotions don't always have to, it's just not happy, sad, calm, angry, or whatever it is. There's a whole spectrum to it, and it's being able to just like go that in practice and see how a certain situation that you either go through or you bring up in session can be deeper than just that made me sad. It could be that made me confused, or that made me curious about my place in the world, that brought up this existential crisis, or that did this and that. And it is something that you didn't know you needed. And from time to time, you can use this to kind of go through life in general, because it helps you identify your emotions. And that's a big thing where people just think, oh, emotions, I know emotions. So it's like the feeling wheel is just really, really cool to see, and really, really cool to just be able to go through. So I won't, I know I did say emotions, but it is, there is a bit of a difference between what feelings are and emotions are. So I'm just reading here through, and I'll read this. So feelings are internal emotions, words mistaken for emotions, but that are actually thoughts in the form of evaluations and judgments of others. So feelings are not emotions. And that was big for me, because it's like you think to yourself, when something happens to you, it's an emotion. It's the way it is. It's the way you want it to be. It's the way it happened, right? But you think feelings are definitely not emotions. Feelings are passing. Feelings are fleeting. Feelings change. I feel like, and being able to use that in communication is very, very cool, because then that lets you know that it's a feeling, and it's a feeling that can change. The relationship is such that emotions are characteristics of intense feelings, and not every feeling is intense or registers to the point that it becomes an emotion. So it's just really cool to see that when we feel a certain way, we tend to take that feeling and extrapolate it as, this is the big emotion that I feel right now, and so hence this is the way things are. But identifying that those things are feelings, and they're passing and they're fleeting in a way. And maybe they may not be, and they may generate or graduate to become emotions, but it's good to be able to realize, okay, that's a feeling for now, but that's not emotion that will stick. Related to the feelings and emotions differences is whenever I have, I mean, it's no secret, anxiety is my best friend, and it kind of shows up in different ways. Shows up in a way that seems like just pre-planning and just jumping out the window half the time, and just jumping to conclusions, or solving problems that don't need a solution because I have to have an answer. But sometimes it is interesting to figure out, and what therapy's helped me figure out is whether or not something is based in fact, fiction, or just a figment of my imagination. And whenever I classify those thoughts and I'm aware of those thoughts that come through, I'm just like, okay, that's not based in reality. Then I'm a lot more calmer. I'm able to kind of step back and be like, okay, you know what? Nice try, mind. Let's get to productive activities, meaning based in now, based in fact. That's nice to keep in the back of my mind, but that's not something I'm going to spiral over. Case in point, the intrusive thoughts. My son likes ballet, like to watch ballet, might want to do ballet one day. And for me, it was just thinking about what the implications of him doing ballet are, and all that stuff, and going everywhere, my mind racing and moving from this to this to that. And I'm just like, you know what? That's not his reality. That's not even something where we know he's going to do it. He's just showing interest. So why kill the interest without knowing what the future holds? And so you let that go, you move on, and you move forward. Yeah, no, I can, if I had an hour, I would talk an hour about this situation, because it is just a beautiful opportunity to have somebody there to listen and hear you out. It's clear I feel like it's clear what the benefits are, but I'll still outline the benefits. For me, the benefits of therapy are understanding your emotions, understanding who you are, understanding and identifying the roadblocks and obstacles to your optimal mental health, overcoming anxiety and insecurity, which is big for me, coping with stress. I mean, we all need a little bit of soothing and coping and techniques to help us relax, processing previous trauma, whatever that might be, and working on breaking unhealthy habits, be it with food, be it with people, friends, exercise, relationships, communication styles, whatever it is. Introducing some lifestyle changes, exercise, meditation, mindfulness, yoga, whatever it is that you feel like could bring structure, a bike ride, a walk, a run. And most importantly, I think identifying your triggers, because I think there was a few years ago where it was like trigger warning. But I think, for instance, like you need to realize what your triggers are ahead of time, so that you're not ambushed by them, and not needing a trigger warning. Realizing the world is full of triggers, and you can't bubble wrap yourself. You just have to live within it. So yeah, no, those are the benefits to me, and I love those benefits. I'll take those benefits any day. What's really now we're getting into the tough part. No, I purposely left this part for the end, but the toughest part about therapy is, one, finding your fit, meaning finding your ideal therapist, and the cost. Those are the two parts that tend to hurt. And I know I just talked through those things, and I'm kind of burying the lead here, but therapy costs, and depending on your insurance coverage, it may or may not be covered. So it's important to find either a program or either something that it makes it affordable. The good thing about most higher education situations is, and that which is where my introduction started, they have licensed counselors, licensed therapists, and things like that on staff that you can talk to, and depending on what you're going through, get the help that you need. But once you come out into the real world, there are programs. I currently subscribe to a program called Regain US, and that helps me with affordable therapy, where it's either a subscription per session, or you can do a quarterly or yearly membership. And really gives you an opportunity, when you do a more longer term subscription, to stick with it, find your fit, try different things, try different people, try different approaches, and see what works. The program with the Regain really is nice because they also have a need-based stipend or subsidy, a need-based subsidy, that's what it is, where you can, based on your need, based on your financial need or whatever it is, you can get a cost reduction on it. So it's still pricey, but it is definitely something that I would recommend. In terms of finding your fit, which is even more harder than the cost, because half the time I guess they could go hand in hand. Usually you're thinking about the cost it takes and whether or not the relationship or the therapist you have is the right fit for you. So it's like every session you go into, you feel like you're wasting your time versus you're seeing the benefits or the return. But I think once you step away from that and find the person that either is specialized in the issue that you are going through, is, and I think let's just be real, representative of who you feel like you are, and you can connect on another level outside of just the work that they will be putting you through. Because like with everything in the world, representation matters, and so therapy is no different. And so I definitely encourage people to try different therapists, to give people a chance, to give the process a chance. But once you find your fit and find who you'd like to go with, it is like a weight lifted off your shoulders. Yeah, I can talk about this all day, but I put a limit on 30 minutes on each episode, so let's not break it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. This is Just Trying Dad, talking therapy, trying to be more of my optimal self. So see you soon, and speak soon. Please be sure to spread the word, tell a friend, and you can find us wherever podcasts can be found, on Spotify or Google Podcasts, and keep having the conversations, and we'll see you soon.